SHTF card coming back to you with another conversation on what's to come. All right, this one's a little bit different. It's gonna be about nutrition. So whenever people's thinking about what they should be doing, first thing that comes to mind is storing stuff. Like, hey, I want to get a lot of beans, I can get a lot of rice, I'm going to get potato flakes, I don't know, who knows, whatever kind of dried goods you can get. Excellent idea, something everybody should be doing. But I want to bring up something that I've never seen anybody talk about, whether it's prepping channels or gardening channels or anything else of the sort. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to put this out there. So you got back in the day, back in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, whatever, sailing ships went around the world. You had a lot of diseases based on nutrition. So you had a lot of nutritional diseases. Scurvy being one of the diseases that plagued sailors back in the old days, or for a long time. You had things like rickets, you had goiters, that kind of stuff, and those were all nutritional based diseases. If we do get into a point where people are surviving off of stored rice and stored beans and stored whatever dried good that you may happen to have in your cabinet, then the longer a situation like that goes on, the more the need will be for fresh food. Because fresh foods has all the nutrition in it. You will get some proteins and some nutrients from your dried stored food. But one thing, of course, to recommend adding to any kind of preps that you are making is to buy, simple solution for the problems I'm talking about here is just buy some multivitamins, right? That can help. But if you look at the packaging on the stuff that you're buying from the store, you see enriched flour, enriched bread, enriched whatever, iodized salt. The reason why we have these things is because back before they had those things, people were catching diseases from this. So if you got scurvy, I'll use that one because that's a major example. People on sailing ships back a few hundred years ago had scurvy and were dying of scurvy like crazy. And scurvy is simply a vitamin C deficiency. Now, the reason why vitamin C is such a major deal about that and why it's such important to talk about that particular illness and that particular setup is because that's what a lot of the sailors were surviving on. You had salted meats, you had dried beans, you had things like rice, you had maybe dried whatever it is they had that could keep for a long time in barrels on boats because they spent months at a time at sea. So that kind of mirrors as close to what it would like to be living off your preps. So if you have a closet full of dried rice and beans and you're like, that's how you're going to ride through any kind of SHTF apocalypse, keep in mind that you need some nutrition that you normally would be getting from your enriched flour, from your canned goods, because even a cooked canned goods, has some level of nutrients in it. So anyways, let's just go through some of the numbers here. An adult male for vitamin C needs about 90 milligrams of vitamin C per day. Adult female needs about 75 per day. So vitamin C is water soluble. That's one of the big reasons why you have to have this all the time. Because if we're talking about some of the other ones, like say iodine or vitamin D, which lack of vitamin D would cause rickets. If you had a vitamin D deficiency, vitamin D is a fat soluble, so it will stay in your body longer because it's in your fat. Being water soluble vitamin C, extras will be flushed from your system when you go to the bathroom. So you have to continue to ingest vitamin C on a regular basis to avoid problems. All right, so I just wanted to briefly go over that statistic. How much do you need? And then let's look at a few things as to where you can go to get it. If you're growing your own stuff, or if you're foraging, then a few places that's high in vitamin C that you can consider. Rose hips, believe it or not, if you have a rose bush in your yard and you get the rose hips, those are actually a pretty good source of vitamin C. Some of these are not going to be practical for everybody, like kiwis, oranges, orange juice, grapefruits, things like that. If you live in South Florida, parts of California, maybe southern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, somewhere along the Gulf Coast, you may be able to grow some of these things. Other than that, if you live further north, like I do in the Midwest, you're not going to be growing oranges and stuff like that unless you have a little dwarf tree in a greenhouse or something like that in a pot you can bring in and out. But that's not going to be a practical way for you to get your vitamin C. So what other stuff can you get vitamin C from? Things like bell peppers, believe it or not, are high in vitamin C. Your broccoli and other brassicas are high in vitamin C. So that's going to be broccoli. It's going to be anything in that family. Cabbage is going to have some vitamin C. You're going to get some vitamin C in Brussels sprouts and things of that nature. All those from that family have vitamin C in it. Strawberries and other berries. Strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, those have vitamin C in them. So strawberries, particularly like this particular stat I have right here, strawberries, you have by weight 89.4 milligrams of vitamin C for every 152 grams. So be that what it is. Cherry tomatoes, in fact, tomatoes in general are high in vitamin C. So people are on the fence about whether or not tomatoes should be part of a SHTF garden. There's always a debate about that. Well, tomatoes take up a lot of space. You don't get a lot of calories from them. Should you be planting potatoes instead of tomatoes? Absolutely should be planting potatoes because that's going to be the main calorie crop for a backyard garden. It doesn't have space to grow rice and wheat and all the rest. When you, of course, can make potato bread. But anyways, I'm off topic. But tomatoes offer a lot of nutrients, not to mention you can make the sauce and stuff. So vitamin C, tomatoes. Spinach, all right, every SHTF garden should have at least one leafy green. So I have some spinach planted outside. I'm probably gonna do some kale as well. For the moment I have spinach, I've done collard greens, done kale, done all those things. Mix it up with a little bit of those, any one of those, and there's probably a lot of other ones, mustard greens and that stuff. Any kind of leafy green is going to be high in vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So you have to have at least one or more than one leafy green. Take spinach, for example. What I personally have, you'll probably seen in one of my gardening videos where I was transplanting some of that spinach out there. The spinach, of course, not only is it cold tolerant, but cooked spinach also maintains some of its vitamin C, because that's one of the problems with vitamin C. Is you cook it too much, you can destroy a lot of the vitamin C that's in there, but there's enough in the spinach to have a decent amount of vitamin C left over even once you cook it. So if you're cooking it, you're still getting vitamin C, even though you get more if you eat it raw. Potatoes actually have vitamin C in it. Potatoes not as nutrient dense as other things, but they do have some vitamin C and a few other things that you can use. All right, so fruits that's got a high vitamin C. Guavas, like I said, some of this stuff is just not going to be applicable. Kiwis, now I have some hardy kiwis that I'm be starting, well, not starting, I haven't bought them as plants. They're going in my garden this year because I want to have those perennials. So I got 3 different types of grapes, 2 blueberries, 3 raspberries, 2 blackberries. So I get some of these berries in there. I got hardy kiwis, goji berries, that kind of stuff. Lemons, strawberries, those type of things, of course, are going to be in your best for vitamin C. There's this other one called, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, Lychee. Anyone's familiar with that fruit? I've never heard of it. It's supposed to be high in vitamin C. And let's just go down the list. Here we go. Blackberries, blueberries, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cantaloupe. Who would ever thought cantaloupe, right? Cauliflower, grapefruit. That's an obvious one. Green peppers, oranges, papayas, potatoes, spinach, strawberries, tomatoes, tomato juice. Of course, all these other juices as well, turnip greens. So that's another form of green. And the other one I wanted to touch on, you could do a whole series, and maybe we should if there's some interest in this type of material. I just wanted to quick throw it out there for people to think about the nutrients that you may have to replace that you normally are getting from enriched foods. Is another one that's big is iodine. So if you live in a coastal area, you can get seaweed and sea salt. You can maybe boil boil the water off if you have access to ocean water, and you can get that salt, you can get that iodine, you can get the seaweed, and you'll be rich in iodine. Everybody who lives in the interior of the country, or in whether other countries are out there that may be watching, that doesn't have access to an ocean, it's gonna have to be looking for iodine. And that's why they have iodized salt, because you have to have the iodine, you'll get the big goiters and stuff like that. So just food for thoughts. Whenever you're taking inventory of stuff and you're putting a little extra in the pantry, iodized salt can help save you from problems in the future. Although you still want some non-iodized salt for canning, you want some iodized salt for the iodine. Or you could do iodine tablets or whatever. Iodine tablets is also a good way to purify water, as a side note. Other things you could be doing is, like I said, getting multivitamins. But anyways, not to make this too long, some iodine-rich foods here. Again, is spinach. Spinach covers the iodine, covers the vitamin C, covers this of strawberries. Another one which also has high vitamin C. Sea salt, we mentioned. Broccoli, we mentioned that one. Cranberries. Coconut oil, that's something you have to store. I don't think anybody's growing any coconuts in their yard. If you are, you're a lucky one. Fennel, never tried growing that. And of course, things that are like seaweed and things of that nature that's going to be growing around coastal areas. So that's it for this episode. I want to throw it out there. Keep in mind the nutritional aspect. If your plan is rice and beans, take a little care to make sure you're stocking away multivitamins. If you have some gardening space, even if it's just a windowsill, parsley is another one high in vitamins. And you could be growing that in a windowsill to help flavor your food. Same thing with peppers. Peppers in general, not a great SHTF food because they got almost no calories. But what they do have is some vitamin C. So anyways, keep that with a grain of salt in mind so that you can be prepared when it comes to keeping up your health and not getting some preventable illness in the future if things go completely sideways and you are living with stored rations to help supplement whatever rationing program may end up being in place over the food shortages. Anyways, this is SHTF Garden, out.